Good morning, everyone. Dan, audio's coming in good? Okay, great. Thank you all for joining our webinar today. We're super excited to have everyone here. Today you're here because you signed up for our webinar on how to plan a pumpkin smash event for your community. So just a few webinar logistics before we get started. All of the attendees have been muted. If you have any questions or comments, you can put them in the chat. When you're submitting your comment or question, make sure that you're submitting it to all attendees. We really want the chat to act as kind of a community support space. So feel free to comment on each other's questions or items that Dan and Tom are going to be talking through today. The webinar is going to be recorded. Once the webinar is over, we'll make sure to send a link of the recording of the webinar as well as a PDF of the presentation today. And we also have created a pumpkin smash event checklist that's pictured on the right here. So you'll get all of these materials. Feel free to share them. And those materials will also be going to folks who aren't actually in attendance today, but also did register. Okay, and then the last thing I'll just say before we get started is feel free to introduce yourself in the chat if you want to do your name and maybe what organization or area of the state that you're from. I know we also have a number of folks joining us from out of state, so we really appreciate you being here. And without further ado, I will hand it over to Tom 20 and Dan Lucas-Rain.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm Tom 20 from Grow Amsterdam, New York. Grow is an all-volunteer non-for-profit with 2 community gardens. We do environmental education. We also do recycling events. And in the fall, we have a costume swap with the library leading up to the Halloween parade and finishing with the pumpkin smash.
Thanks, Tom. Good morning. My name is Dan Lucas-Rain, and I'm the Recycling and Composting Department Head for the town of Bethlehem and Albany County, New York, and also the Vice President and Chapter 4 Representative for NYSAR 3, the New York State Association for Reduction, Reuse, and Recycling. We have a vibrant Organics Council for those working in composting or other organics-related spaces. Jesse Kearns is the chair of the Organics Council and can help answer questions at a later time. Please check us out at nysar3.org. I'm thrilled to be co-presenting today with my friend Tom about a very exciting topic, pumpkin smash events. We have a lot of information to share with you today from our combined 7 years of smash event experience, but please don't let this be overwhelming. The webinar presents comprehensive information as a resource to hopefully assist folks at all levels of smash event planning. But your first event doesn't have to be too complex to be successful.
So we hope this how-to workshop will provide you with all the pieces we've thought of to plan and implement a successful smash event in a small footprint with volunteers. Your organization can adapt this information to fit the resources available to you. I first thought of a smash event to launch Compost Works, Grow Amsterdam's community food scrap drop-off program. The Pumpkin Smash has become our signature event. It's an excellent way to engage the community without overt messaging. It's a win-win. People love Halloween, have an affinity for pumpkins, and smashing them is fun. Thanks again for coming.
Let's talk goals. A pumpkin smash event is a very exciting and fun way to get people involved in the composting process, a theme which we will be hitting you over the head with repeatedly in this webinar. If our events have had an impact, participants will learn something about how pumpkins and food scraps make good compost, and that compost in turn grows more food. Grow Amsterdam collects at least 1 ton of pumpkins in their half-day event. Town of Bethlehem estimates that we do 3 to 4 tons in our half-day event. What will you do with the collected pumpkins and other organics after the event? This might include making compost, feeding animals, or possibly starting a pumpkin patch to grow more pumpkins to smash, or to make a pie. So the first step in planning is a pumpkin smash is securing a location. Considerations include, do you need a permit if you don't have your own space? Bethlehem uses our compost facility, so we have that luxury. Grow Amsterdam occupies a small section of a city park at the edge of ball fields. Take site accessibility into consideration for mobility impaired participants. What happens if it rains? Is water going to pool on the surfaces, or is the site well drained? Is there shelter there in case of inclement weather? Pumpkin smashes can be quite popular events. You can get hundreds of people there. Make sure you have adequate parking. Is it fenced in, or can you at least control access? Pick a date. Both of our organizations have chosen the first Saturday after Halloween, and that way it's not too late in the fall when it's more likely to be colder. We both chose a post-Halloween date because we want to collect used pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns from Halloween, and it's a great way to extend that excitement and fun. I remember the first year of our first pumpkin smash event, I was blown away by how many parents and kids commented with things like, "Wow, I thought the fun of Halloween was over on October 31st. This is a good way to continue that another weekend." Kids bring their beloved jack-o'-lanterns and say goodbye to them and take selfies with them before smashing them or launching them into oblivion. Grow Amsterdam also sets the Sunday of the same weekend as a rain date. Their other backup plan is to switch to a collection-only event in case of inclement weather or a pandemic. Bethlehem does it rain or shine. Knock on wood, we've been doing okay so far. Grow Amsterdam has a drop-off only option. They find that even before you open the gates, people will start dropping them off. So they accommodate this with earlier drop-off hours, beginning at 9 a.m., an hour before the event starts. They also accept straw bales and corn stalks and other organic fall decorations as well. We just focus on pumpkins, carved or not, and gourds at our event in Bethlehem. Grow Amsterdam also uses this opportunity as a fundraiser. When people smash the pumpkins they brought, they usually want to smash more. Where are the rest of them? They sell pumpkins people have donated or that they've gotten from local farms to keep the fun going at modest prices, $1, $3, and $5 depending on the size. For the event hours, as I mentioned, for Grow, drop-off begins at 9 and the event is from 10 to 1. The first year it was until 4 p.m. and then 2, but they noticed fewer people came in the afternoon. The picture on the right shows a volunteer who tallies attendance in half-hour increments. This data allowed Grow to make an educated decision. Our event is 9 to 1 in Bethlehem. Our first year we did it 8 to 4, which is the hours of our compost facility on a Saturday at that time of year. But that was way too long. You want to keep it to 3 to 4 hours total, otherwise your volunteers and staff are going to be exhausted.
So these are some of the things you need to take into consideration. An important one is insurance. If something happens to someone, who's responsible? And another one that I never thought of is, what do you do with everything? I could move everything with my pickup truck the first couple of years, and now we run a box truck to move all our stuff. And Dan, where do you store a catapult?
That's a great question. We chain it up at the back of our facility next to a storage shed. It really should have its own shed, but we don't have one with enough room yet.
So communication is another important piece of the puzzle. You can't repeat your message enough in as many ways as possible. It always amazes me how few people come to the pumpkin smash compared to the number of people that tell me they heard about it on Facebook or their friend or family member told me them about it and they're definitely coming. Well, I don't always see them, so you can't communicate too much. And you need volunteers. When we did the smash in the first year, it was in a short time frame because we got the pollution prevention community grant in October and we had the smash in November. So a question for you is, do you have a good bench of volunteers that you can work with? So we're not at our own facility, we're in a city park, and we make sure the park doesn't have any competing uses. If youth soccer was going on, they would probably edge us out. But we need to file for a permit with the city. So we take the application and we have to provide an insurance certificate that lists the city as additional insured. And then the city takes that and the police and the fire departments review everything. So then we know we have all the public assembly requirements covered and they get it back to us and we allow about 2 months for that to happen. Bethlehem has the luxury of having the event in their own organics facility, and the town has their own insurance. And Bro originally had insurance through the American Community Garden Association. And I'll give you a detail about our current insurance. It has a clause that allows for events that don't have more than 250 total people attending. That's not 250 people at one time. And it's called special events coverage without liquor liability coverage for non-for-profit organizations. And sometimes you really do have to get into the weeds about what it takes to put on an event responsibly.
Let's talk infrastructure. There are several considerations you can see on this slide. I won't read them all, but remember signage, tents, tables and chairs, and other items including personal protective equipment, or PPE. Grow Amsterdam makes good use of straw bales as part of their infrastructure. We're going to get into details of the smash zones pretty soon in an upcoming slide. And of course, the catapult for Bethlehem. Can't show you the large one today, but I built a working scale model to show you a bit later. Here are a bunch of budget considerations to think about, and there's some assumptions at the top of the slide as well. Slides from this webinar will be made available to all participants as a follow-up. Renting porta potties, unless you already have a facility that has those, is key, of course. They can be $150 each. Straw bale costs add up if you have a lot of them. And making a large format banner can also be one of your costlier items. Grow Amsterdam has found a lot of these items to be important, and we may add to Bethlehem's comparatively simple event in future years. Food and beverages are key. As with most public events, it's a big draw. We both arrived at donuts and cider as seasonally appropriate. If you have smashing pumpkins and food and drink, who doesn't consider that a great fall day? So how are you going to fund those budget needs? In Bethlehem, we use our own budget funds so far, but we're going to probably need to branch out if we want to continue to grow the event. Grow Amsterdam uses a variety of funds, including small grants and sponsorships, donations and sale of donuts, cider, and extra pumpkins. Tom has a sample fundraising letter to a local supermarket provided here on the slide. We hope to have other samples and templates available for those interested in the future. Site layout. We're going to show you a couple of slides of actual details of the layout, but think about all the types of things you want to have. You're going to want to have a large parking area, as we mentioned, and an area with portable restrooms. You may have a drop-off area, and you'll definitely want smashing zones. The vendors and volunteer tents, a weighing area, or other considerations. So a lot of things to think about with a site layout that we can help advise on. We use a greeter/traffic control person at our event at Bethlehem's compost facility. It's necessary because the event happens simultaneously with our normal compost site operations during open public hours, including lots of town trucks bringing in vacuum collected loose leaves that Saturday in November.
So part of your planning process should be to make a map of your site and identify how traffic's going to flow through it and where everything's going to go. The first couple of years, we thought this was a good plan. We wanted people to drop off their pumpkins near our weigh station, but then we also wanted to bring them back to the front of the event to resell to the public. Well, when people coming in saw that pile, they stopped right there, and that was it. As you can see, we updated our map as indicated by the black line by the blue arrow. We have the drop off right there at the front of the event and people go on their way. You can also see how we laid out our event last year. There's the organization tent and the cafe, and behind that is a face painter, and then we have the selfie station and our other photo attraction area, and then the games area is in this area as well. And then the smash zone and the target area are separated from this activity and separate from each other. So this view shows the pumpkins that people drop off and we sell back to the public, and that's our organization tent right next to it. And there's a volunteer table in the back we make sure the tent is staffed the whole time so that everybody's stuff is safe. Our food tent is next to it, and that brings up an important question. If you're selling things, how will you handle petty cash? In the beginning years, we had people go to the main tent and buy food tickets, and now we trust a key volunteer with the petty cash, and whoever staffs the organization table make sure that people pay for the pumpkins and don't just walk away with them. In the photo on the right, I wanted to show you some detail of our organization tent. It's important that you have a sign that says thank you to your donors and your sponsors. We've developed a good relationship with Target Distribution Center in our community, and they've come to our gardens multiple times and invited us to apply for a mini grant. The grant from Target helped us with our fall activities last year, and another thing we do is write thank you cards to our donors and sponsors. So consider vendors. Will you have other organizations table at your event? Will you have vendors that sell things or food, or will you have a standalone event? We do a standalone event. I've tabled at lots of events and I see the same people from the same organizations come and they just sit behind the table and they're doing the do and they don't really engage with the public except to refill the table with free pens and frisbees and things. And that's not the kind of event I wanted to have. As far as food, if we're going to sell food, I thought we should try to capture that money as well. It's not a lot. We sell cider and donuts for $1, and we pay a face painter to do the face painting so people don't have to tip them or pay them directly. The town of Bethlehem gets cider from a local orchard and donuts from a local restaurant, and they give it all away for free, but they do run out. So they're considering adding a food vendor and other activities in the future. So the picture on the left shows a family that's coming to the smash with their pumpkins. And in the middle, there's a family that's already smashed their pumpkins, has enjoyed the event, got their faces painted, and they're picking out more pumpkins to smash. I can't stress enough, if you smash one pumpkin, you're gonna want to smash more. So that's why we sell extra pumpkins. And then we added the children's activities in the games area. We have oversized checkers, oversized mancala, and this year we added pumpkin bowling. And here's a picture of a face and hole attraction that some volunteers made for us. All right, so here's the meat and potatoes. The maul on the right is made with a piece of box elder and a fiberglass handle from a sledgehammer to keep it lightweight, but we also make ones that are made with wood handles. I kind of like Dan's design in the photo on the top, where the handle comes all the way through the log and you can kind of pin it and help hold it in place better. So that's the maul. Here's how to do it. I like to use a Forstner bit and drill a hole in the log, but you can also use a paddle bit or a hole saw. And the close-up picture in the middle shows that if the hole is loose, if you drill it so that the oval of the handle fits all the way in. So you have to undersize the hole a little bit and still chisel it or file it to get a tight fit. And I find marine adhesive is really good, and then a screw to hold it all together. We also got dead blow hammers. I found them at an affordable price at Harbor Freight, and we got these for the little kids, and they weigh 3 to 5 pounds. But as you can see, the little kids like to use the big tools. One thing we learned in our first year was that a baseball bat is a bad idea. I thought people would swing the bat like a club, but people want to swing a bat like a bat, and there's really no safe way to do that in the crowd. We also don't let people bring their own implements. I got that question once. Can I bring my own? No. That's a wheelbarrow tire in the picture in the middle, and I thought it would help hold the pumpkin in place on the stump, but absorb too much of the impact of the smashing. And I don't want to put a spike in the stump to hold the pumpkin because I don't want something sharp sticking out. That's a potential hazard. So I'm still trying to figure out a way to keep the pumpkins from rolling off the stump. When we first started doing the smash, I was surprised by how many people tell their friend, their family member to think of so-and-so and get their aggression out. I guess people are really angry and got a vent. That's not my thing, but I thought it was kind of interesting. And I'll give you my tip for smashing a pumpkin with a maul. Try to hit it with the edge of the face of the maul to cut it instead of the flat side. Most people hit it with the flat side, and it can take several tries because pumpkins can be quite resilient. Dan, do you have anything to add?
Sure, Tom. Well, we asked the families that were there the first year to help us name the various implements. The one in the photo in the lower left, that's my wife is wielding in the picture, is now affectionately known as the Veginator. I made this from a piece of a stout branch that had fallen from the silver maple tree in front of my house and sadly had partially crushed my son's car. So we knew it was good at smashing things already, at least. And we also have some shorter ones the little kids like to use that we call Hulk Smash, upper left photo on the slide, and Bam Bam, etc.
So that's the implements. Here's the smash zones. On the left, there's our original setup in 2019. We had a couple of stumps. They were sort of separated, but not really far enough apart with the way things fly. And in the middle is how we did it last year. This area is 20 feet by 100 about, and so we have 4 smash zones, and they're 10 feet by 10 feet, and then they have dead zones between them that are also 10 feet by 10 feet. And we put an orange backer board to help keep pumpkins from rolling away because when you hit a pumpkin, it wants to go somewhere. And everything's fenced in. We use caution tape. It's less plastic than orange safety fencing, and wooden snow fencing is cumbersome and maybe a little more expensive, and so is something like burlap. We want to be sustainable, so volunteers roll up the caution tape and we save as much as we can. Our zones are on grass and we spread out straw to make it less slippery. Each zone has a stump. The stump is in the middle and it has a ground rod, and I use an old piece of copper pipe to hold it in place. And then only the smasher and the volunteer are allowed in the zone. And you really have to monitor that because everybody wants to rush in. So here's our target zones, and these are a lot of fun too. Our zone is completely fenced in. We have straw bales across the front as a barrier. They also make a good place for people to rest their pumpkins in pieces, because if it's not too busy, we let people take the pieces after they've smashed them and go over to the target zone and throw them at the targets. One target is 10 feet away, which allows younger children to reach it, and the other is 12 feet. We make sure we station a volunteer at that front line to make sure nobody crosses over into the zone and they're not in the line of fire, or they stumble on the target because, it's a spiked target.
Hey, and in the spirit of punny naming, I call our spiked targets Glad the Impaler.
Dan, I love how you've named all your implements. So the second volunteer retrieves pumpkins and cleans off the targets, and we found that a long-handled cultivator is a good tool for getting pumpkins off targets. And we make the targets with 12-inch railroad spikes because thinner nails bend. You could also use a timber screw, but they're $6 or $7 a pop, so you might as well use a railroad spike anyway. You need something sturdy. The top right slide shows our detail, and the spike is put through a board, and that board is backed by another board, and it's all screwed together. And I don't have a picture of the front of that white target, but it's an old metal lawn table we had laying around. Part of our ethos is to reuse and repurpose as much as possible. By trial and error, I found that leaning the target at 60 degrees works. Anything steeper and it's like hitting a wall and stuff just drops, and anything leaned back further makes it really hard to throw at. We secure it with wooden stakes in the ground, and then we screw the wooden stakes to the frame of the target, and we buffet that with bales of straw. And my tip for throwing a pumpkin is to lob it in an arc, because most people throw it like a baseball and it just bounces off. So that's the targets.
Let's talk catapults. We originally looked for appropriate plans online, but everything was either too small for us, like little catapults designed for classroom science projects, or huge trebuchets that were too dangerous for a family event with young kids. So we made our own design and continue to tweak it. We've also started building, but need to perfect before November 2nd, a large Roman ballista. It's like a giant crossbow. In the spirit of naming, our full-scale catapult is called Chuck. So I guess this mini scale model that I've made for demonstration purposes today is Chucky. We fashioned it, as you can see from the photos, as well as this mini scale model here, to be a torsion catapult in the medieval style siege engine. Torsion catapults get their power from the twisted ropes along the bottom here, and they use rods or small dowels, in this case for the mini model, to twist the ropes at both ends over and over and over again till they are really tight. And then you lock it in place to keep that maximum torque power. And we supplement the torsion ropes with bungee cords to get extra oomph. This little scale model is actually a working model, and we can launch stuff like we did at the Organic Summit across the room. So obviously catapults are a lot of fun. When pumpkins land on the asphalt pad at our compost facility, they'll split open. But if they're cushioned by landing on other pumpkin bits, they might not do so much. So our big catapult has wheels, and we can keep reorienting it where we're aiming it and move where we're starting from. We didn't want to use a trebuchet, which is what folks use for those hurling competitions. You may have seen videos where they can chuck pumpkins thousands of feet. Trebuchets use a counterweight that drops to provide the force, and the arm spins a full circle, so they use a sling to hold the projectile. You can get distance like you couldn't imagine on those. But the problem with the trebuchet for a family-friendly event where folks are right up close to the launching area is that with the sling, the projectiles can go backwards or sideways, and they have dangerous amounts of force. So not appropriate for the family-friendly event. Instead, we wanted something where you can predict at least where direction it's going. And a note about the torsion ropes. You need about 3 times as much as you actually think you need. Ours uses about 200 feet of rope and could use more. Our town leaders were very supportive of the catapult, but depending on your community, you may have potential liability issues to work around. You want to make sure there are extra pumpkins to decorate with and for attendees to smash after they're finished smashing their own. Grow Amsterdam has a couple of connections with farmers in the community who allow Grow to pick pumpkins in their fields after Halloween. First couple of years of their event, an extra pickup truck load of pumpkins helped ensure there were enough. Now they find that attendees drop off a good supply of pumpkins to smash, so acquiring extra is not necessary. If you have too many left over, then you have to smash them at the end. End uses. What's going to happen to those smashed pumpkin bits afterwards? Grow Amsterdam primarily composts them. It's quite a chore to manage a dump truck load of pumpkins and put it in bins. So they premix it with straw and corn stalks. And in 2022, the load was left on a lot and spread out and grew into a large pumpkin patch the next year. Following the New York State wasted food hierarchy, feeding hungry people and animals is above recycling of organics through composting. 2023 was the first time Grow Amsterdam connected with a farmer who fed pumpkins to the cows, pigs, which is wonderful. The farmer prefers the whole pumpkins, though, rather than the smashed ones. And Grow would like to feed chickens, too, but they haven't gotten permission from Amsterdam yet. At the town of Bethlehem, since our smash event is held right at our compost facility, we compost the leftovers on site. We also have the paved pad there and our large wheel loaders, so we can scoop up the smashed pumpkins much more easily than by hand with volunteers. In the middle photo at the top, you can see one of our piles from last year of the smashed pumpkins with a pile of compost in process behind it. We now incorporate the pumpkin bits into our growing food scraps composting program. Some people don't want to smash pumpkins, believe it or not. So Grow Amsterdam has a dedicated drop-off spot for those who want to just donate them. Cars will be moving through this space, so how to do this safely should be your first concern. This is a good opportunity to gather data about the participants and share information about the organization's programs. Grow asked people how they heard about the Smash, where they live, and if they would like to get on Grow's email list to receive information about upcoming events. If they're interested in information about composting, volunteers hand them a compost brochure. Grow used to weigh the incoming pumpkins separately as a metric, but that ended up being too much work. So now they weigh all the chopped pumpkins at the end.
So managing all the smashed pumpkins is a big job. It takes a dedicated crew, and there really is no better way to do it than to use your hands. One tip we found is that cotton gloves get soaked immediately, so you at least have to have the vinyl coated ones. And then the volunteers pick up everything, and we use wheelbarrows, buckets, garden carts, whatever's handy to get over to the chop zone. One note about volunteers is, are you allowed to have people who are under age 18? We had Girl Scouts one year, but they came with adult supervision. So ask your leadership what age is okay, and if they are under 18, should they come with an adult? And maybe not if they're 16 and they're getting there in their community service hours for high school, perhaps. So we chop everything after it's smashed. We like to get things smaller than a dinner plate, probably about the size of your hand is okay. I added plywood bottoms to these wash tubs, and the wash tubs make a good chopping basin because they have handles and then you can pick everything up to throw in the truck. If you're chopping on asphalt or on the ground, then you have to scrape it up off of that. We also chop in 5-gallon buckets. One of our volunteers figured out how to weigh a wheelbarrow full of pumpkins. And so then we went from chopping and weighing, or was it weighing and chopping? I don't know, I get confused. So make sure your team is on the same page with how you're all going to do it. And you can't tell, but in the picture in the middle is the mayor of Amsterdam who came and worked with us one year during COVID. So my question to you is, do your elected officials get what you do, or do they just pop in for a photo op and then disappear if they acknowledge your presence at all? So Grow Amsterdam has a Facebook page. Please like us, a website, and Instagram. My stepson made a TikTok last year about the pumpkin smash, and there's lots of different communication strategies and platforms, and managing it all can be a full-time job, and believe me, it is. If there's time in the discussion portion, I'd love to find out what platforms you have used successfully to communicate. So press is also important, and I wanted to show you a whole slide with my press release email, but it didn't all fit. In the body of the email is my press release, and then I also attach it to the email as a PDF. I also attach a couple of pictures in a reduced file size, excuse me, so that the email doesn't choke when I send it. And my email address is SES verified so that it doesn't look like spam. And if you're in a larger metro area, maybe you want to consider making a press packet that has a couple of background sheets about the issue of organics pollution in your organization, and it should have a business card in it with a contact person, and that contact person should be knowledgeable about the topics and authorized to speak to the press. I previously worked for an organization where we weren't allowed to talk to the press. So News 10 in Albany approached me and said, well, If you give us some content, we might put together a news piece made. And I first thought, well, why would I want to do all your work for you? You should come to my event. But then I realized the ultimate goal is to get press and get the message out. So after a long day with the pumpkin smash, I sat down at my computer and I put together some pictures and videos, and I clearly labeled them in full sentences so they explained what was going on. And I put them in a Google Drive because you can't share large files in an email. And between those pictures and the press release, they put together a piece, and I think they did a good job. Let's have a look.
The Amsterdam Pumpkin Smash has been a smashing success for the last 5 years. The event has collected more than 8,000 pounds of pumpkins, corn stalks, and straw since they started up. This year's event was no different. Yesterday in Veterans Park, there were 4 smashing stations along with hammers and other tools. And get this, residents could smash their pumpkin or impale it on a spiked target. They could also enjoy cider and donuts. Residents taking the slogan, "Don't trash it, smash it," to heart and have done their part to keep pumpkins and other organics out of the landfill.
So that was the piece.
The Amsterdam
Congratulations, Tom. That was a great piece. We also had a couple of TV news stations and the local NPR affiliate at our first event. And you can see a photographer there next to the catapult, as well as the camera person for News Channel 6 that took the video that this still photo is captured from. You can see a little bit of the caption there. The only thing I'd add to Tom's great information about media releases is that you can issue a simple photo opportunity media release instead of a more traditional article-oriented press release. This way, the media knows there's something interesting or exciting to video or photograph. Here's some documents you might want to have. You may also post a notice at the entrance that by entering, participants are agreeing to be photographed. If you've got the reporter right there, they'll usually take care of that for themselves. But if you're going to be potentially submitting photos to media outlets after the fact, it's good to have a written photo and media release, especially for children. Most media outlets will not post photos of children that were sent in to them unless they have a signed media release from the parents. If you're working with volunteers, it's important to have volunteer forms that capture their demographic information and include a liability waiver.
Signage is an important thing to have. The big sign at the top is our banner. That's 3 feet by 8 feet that we use. And speaking of communications, we march in Amsterdam's Halloween parade when there's over 10,000 people, and we throw out over 4,000 pieces of candy, and we run out. It's mayhem. We updated the sign and we left off the date so that we could write it in every year. So we take that banner and we use it to decorate our entrance, and it frames the event space and makes a nice statement. Another great thing you can do is take old political lawn signs and paint them over and then set them up in high traffic areas to advertise your event. We used to use chalkboard paint and chalk, but it smudges easily. And then you need signage to locate things in your event and tell people go here, go things this way, and those kind of things. So we did the Smash in 2019 with 9 volunteers, and now we have over 25. You want to have job descriptions for everything you do, and you want your most experienced volunteers to be in your Smash stations because that's the high impact area. And you should recognize that volunteers sometimes come with a friend and they want to stick together. We also try to switch up the duties and stations so that people don't feel burned out or like they're doing something that nobody else is doing, and then also so they don't get bored. Consider staggering the times volunteers show up. We split them into early setup, event, and breakdown with early and late overlapping the event coverage. If possible, hold a group meeting or an orientation, explain the event and the responsibilities and how to do the different tasks. Make sure the volunteers are wearing closed-toed shoes and have signed a waiver. And then we give people a name tag with a badge holder and a vest. The vest helps distinguish the volunteers from the public. And if your organization has funds, you might make a t-shirt and give them food tickets. We point out where the volunteer table is and where they can park their stuff. And then we show them where there's water and the bathroom, and we send them on their way. And make sure you have a first aid kit on hand for the event. So that's the majority of our presentation. I put together all my tips and best practices, and we went through a lot of these, but repurposed lawn signs is a good one. And also make sure the volunteer in the food tent doesn't open all the packages of cookies and donuts at once. Dan, do you have any other tips?
No, I think you've got it very well covered, Tom. But I do want to thank everybody for participating today, and we've got a dynamic Q&A session ahead of us. Thank you, Tom, for being very much the original brains behind the Pumpkin Smash events in this area. And a special thank you to Christine and the DEC for hosting and getting a great webinar audience. And now we will take your questions.
So we're going to take questions from you now. And if we get through these questions, then we have some questions we'd like to ask you. Thanks again for coming. Christine, what's popped up?
Yep, let me just pull up the chat really quick.
And while Christine's doing that, I'll tell you that this slide is followed by a slide that has a list of all the tools and supplies that we use to put together a smash, so that you have that as a handy reference.
And their DEC staff has also helped put together a fantastic event checklist that's also going to be made available. So everybody who's participating in the webinar, or even who signed up but wasn't able to tune in today, is going to get 3 documents. They're going to get a PDF of the PowerPoint. They're going to get a link to the video recording of the entire webinar, and they're going to get that checklist. So special thanks to Miranda for helping with that.
Okay, I've got our first question here. To the presenters, looks like your event has expanded over the years. What was your event like in year 1, and how would you recommend starting with an initial event? And I know you kind of talked through some of that as you went through the PowerPoint, but maybe you could just say some of like the biggest changes you've seen between year 1 and now, and any tips for like what you really should focus on for that first year kicking it off.
I'd say the most important thing we should have focused on year 1 was having better separation of the smash zones, because we really did just set the stumps down like, oh yeah, this is this far apart, and it kind of seemed good, but once, because we had never smashed pumpkins before, so once people started smashing pumpkins and you see pieces fly, then you realize, oh yeah, we better reset and do it differently. That's probably my one biggest thing.
We're just our biggest changes as we go here each year. We're growing, but as I mentioned in the beginning, you can start off pretty small. Couple of smash zones, couple of targets. You don't have to have a catapult or any kind of projectile launching equipment, although that adds to the fun. But all the resources that Tom's organization has learned over the 5 years they've been doing this now, helped put together all these resources, so folks can start off a lot farther ahead than we did in the early years, or especially Tom did in the early years, without having somebody to guide them in that way.
Next question, if a K through 12 public school wants to host an event like this, what are best practices for safety precautions and insurance coverage?
Well, schools often host events, right? PTA events, social events, sporting events. So I'm sure they've got insurance coverage already, but you might want to focus on, Tom's got some great tips for safety listed in here. You can see where the smash zones are, well separated, and have a distance roped off from where the targets are for where the kids are allowed to stand and the adults. Make sure you have lots of, at least 1 or 2 adults at every station, making sure there's plenty of adults But you also might want to consider not having a large catapult or that kind of thing for a K-12 school, I would imagine. Those are some
Yeah,
thoughts.
and I would add that you can't have enough adult supervision if it's going to be like a whole school. And if it's similar to like a field day, then you could treat it like there's different stations and areas that the different classes cycle through. So as long as you're able to keep them all separate, so you don't, because it really could turn into mayhem. It's you know smashing pumpkins and throwing things, and but if you keep things separate and you cycle the kids through the stations and they have adult supervision, I think it'll be fine.
It's a great point. Crowd control.
Do you have a volunteer that monitors pumpkins that might have paint or glitter on them?
No,
Do
we
you,
do get pumpkins with paint and glitter on them, or maybe some wax left over in the candle. And I think it's kind of insignificant amount compared to the volume of pumpkins. And um, if you tested for something, you might find something anyway. With the whole testing PFAS kind of thing. But I'm not worried about toxicity on the little bit of material that we receive that's clearly painted. I just don't think it's an issue.
Yeah, we just advertise heavily pumpkins and gourds only in our case, and no candles or other things. Um, and we ask not for painted pumpkins, and like Tom mentioned, it's going to be a very minute amount that might appear anyway.
okay, thanks. Someone had commented, Tom, when you were talking about how to keep the pumpkin on top of the log for smashing, about drilling some of the log out to make a well for the pumpkin to rest in. Is that something that you've tested before?
I haven't tested it, and I thought of it, but then I also think, well, if your well is around and you're putting a bowl of the pumpkin in a round thing like a bowl, it could still, I don't, I, and it would be a lot of work to get that carved out. But and then pumpkins are all different sizes, so something might fit, something might be too small anyway, and so it's a it's a sticky wicket.
I think this comment slash question is in reference to maybe the article that you had, Dan. Don't trash it, smash it was maybe a slogan or catchphrase that one of you used. Is that okay for other people to use?
Sure, why not?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be the first to admit that I didn't invent a pumpkin smash. That when I was researching our P2I grant, that Battery Park City down in New York had done pumpkin smashes, and then there's an organization in Illinois that's had a successful history with them in several different communities. Um, and there's different slogans. We've changed our slogan over we to say it one way, say it another way, think of something creative. It's nobody owns it.
Okay, great. Have either of you ever experienced any injuries on site, and kind of going back to insurance, but any medical coverage that's needed for these events?
Knock on wood, no injuries yet. Our facility is located, close enough for first responders. Tom mentioned definitely important to have first aid kits available on site just in case something happens. But prevention is most important. Tom, what do you have to add?
Yeah, we have not had an incident, fortunately.
And I think you mentioned this in the beginning, but someone had logged on late. Do you know roughly what the cost for insurance is for an event like this?
I don't know specifically for an event because it's part of our organization's coverage. And our organization's coverage is about $1,500 a year, which includes
Okay.
other things.
And then maybe you could talk through again just how you both are funding this event from year to year, and any kind of donations that you collect from the community to help support these events.
We're an all-volunteer organization, and we have 4 board members, and each board member contributes to the budget, so that's a starting point. And you really can try to do it with a limited amount of funds. I think, excuse me, you could certainly do it with $500 or less if you had to. I mean, the biggest thing is a bathroom. If you don't have a bathroom, and then signage, the banner is a luxury. You could get away without that. The straw bales is the other big expense. They're, $8 a piece or so, and we find them very handy. But we've built everything ourselves. We buy some wooden stakes, although if you're handy, you could rip down some wooden stakes to make stakes and just get a roll of caution tape to fence things off. We really do try to make the most with the least amount of stuff, and we've gotten, it's pretty easy to go to the supermarket and they'll give you a $25 gift card or something, and that'll help you get on your way to buying some snacks or water for your volunteers. And as we developed a relationship with like the porta potty company, we paid for the toilet for one event, and then they donated it for the smash. So you tackle it in many different ways.
Have you done any kind of fundraising events leading up to the Pumpkin Smash event?
Not specifically for the smash, no.
Okay.
In the town, we've just used our program funds to fund it, but we've kept it comparatively low cost because we're already open at our compost facility. We already have paid staff there on a Saturday in November anyway, and we've used my time and a couple of volunteers to supplement that, but we're able to hold the event with comparatively few people because of the advantages of having our own facility and the heavy equipment to clean it up and so forth.
And I would just say the biggest expense is time. It really takes a lot of time to do everything. So if you have volunteers or you're volunteering yourself, that saves you a lot of money right there.
So let's say you're an organization who is interested in collecting all the pumpkins, hosting the Smash event, but you don't have a way to, recycle them at the end. What recommendations would you give for them reaching out to potential composters to take the material or to build a relationship with a local farm?
Well, there's statewide resources. Maybe Jesse wants to speak more to those locator maps and things that can help you find a place to compost them and or connect with local farms for feeding animals.
Yeah, I can chime in quick. Christine, I'm really glad that you asked that question because I was thinking about a lot of attendees that may want to host this type of event, but might not have a clear idea on where all of that pumpkin material can go afterwards. So I think those are two of the biggest suggestions. Maybe the two first places you all want to look is there a local farmer that would be interested in handling this material, either for feeding animals or for composting on the farm? And the other is to check out if there are maybe local yard debris compost areas that your municipality might be operating. I think there is maybe some considerations that the farms and the municipality might have to think through. Christine, maybe I can have you speak from the DEC side of things for that. If you've got this one-off drop-off of pumpkins going to like a traditional yard debris compost site, maybe there's some paperwork they'd have to fill out for the DEC in order to do that first. I'm unclear about that regulatory side of things. But that would be my recommendation for the first two areas to look for farms, look for maybe a yard debris composting site.
Yeah, and just to jump in on that, the composting regulations in New York State are definitely friendly to these types of events. So it'd be easier if people do have questions as far as in regards to regulations, they can just email us, and I'll put an email in the chat just because every scenario is a little bit specific. But generally speaking, the regulations are friendly to these types of events.
And I'll just add what we do really quickly again is the city gives us a dump truck to put everything in during the event, and then we tell them where we want it to go. And the first couple of years, we had them take it to one of our gardens, and then we put it in bins, and that was quite a chore. And the last couple of years, we've just had them take it to another lot where we plan to have a garden, and then they dump it and we kind of spread it out and it grows a nice little pumpkin patch. So if you have a neighbor or somebody that has a spot of land and they don't mind some material there, that's another thing to do. It's all good.
And Tom, was it you that had worked with a farmer previously for feeding their animals?
We did that the first time this year. Yeah, that was wonderful.
Was that just a local connection you had, or how did you go about finding that person?
We went through the Montgomery County Soil and Water Office guys, connected us with that farmer.
Okay, yeah, that's a good connection. I wouldn't have even thought about that. Have you ever collected the seeds from the smashing and offered them to participants or local residents for pickup?
No.
Probably a time-consuming task.
At the end, after we rake up all the pieces off the ground, there's thousands of seeds everywhere. And if you come back the next day or two, they're all gone. So the birds and the animals come and gobble them all up.
Have either of you ever tried laying down tarps under smash zones for easier pickup?
No, and I wouldn't recommend it because the tarp is going to be slippery, and if it's on grass or something, then you're still going to be stepping and maybe unsure of your footing, and then you run the risk that the tarp's going to puncture. I mean, if it's on the tarp, how are you picking it up off the tarp? I don't see where it offers an advantage.
Without available heavy equipment, do you think that snow shovels would be a good implement for cleanup?
No, a transfer shovel is the right tool. Maybe a scoop, but pumpkins can get heavy, so you don't, transfer shovels, 14 inches wide or something. So that's really an ideal tool with a long handle.
Someone had a question in regard on the best date to host this. I think you both have hosted it only on the Saturday and Sunday after Halloween. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever
That's
discussed?
the best date.
Yeah. Have you ever discussed hosting it a different time?
It was a quick no because we had one year when it was quite chilly, and I just think getting any later in the month would be even colder potentially and less fun.
Yeah, colder potentially, but also, people they don't want to hold on to their pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns and post-Halloween bits for longer than necessary. They're going to start rotting for them. So want to have it as soon after Halloween as possible.
I will add that we have considered adding in a follow-up drop-off event like around Thanksgiving or after Thanksgiving so that we capture the rest of people's fall decorations, but we haven't done that yet.
Okay.
Yeah, last year for the first time we added, people kept asking us if they could bring pumpkins in well after the event, including Thanksgiving is another time where people have pumpkins and gourds and then they want to compost them afterwards. So we extend the informal drop-off opportunity, well into the early December.
Thanks. I believe I captured everyone's questions in the chat, but we had a few other questions that people had submitted when they registered. What social media platforms does your organization use, and which ones do you find to be most useful?
Well,
Facebook, Instagram.
Facebook. We also have Instagram, which Bernadette uses a little less frequently. It's just a full-time job, and that's one of the questions we had for the audience: is what platforms do you use, and have you found successful?
Yeah, so if anyone has any platforms that they use that they have found to be helpful in the past, if you hosted an event, you can just put them in the chat. And so there were some other questions we wanted to generally ask the audience. Was that, or those questions that you wanted to lead, Dan, Tom?
Sure. I'd like to hear from anybody who's hosted a smash and if they have any other best practices or tips or information to share to add to what we covered. So that would be wonderful.
And if you want to be unmuted and just kind of talk about these things, there is a raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen. You can raise your hand and I can unmute you. We did have some interactions in the chat that said, Garrett has had a lot of success with using TikTok, and locally we use the Nextdoor app and reach a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Sorry to interrupt you, Christine. We got a couple of hands raised. We got Julia.
Oh, okay. Yep. Julia, I'm going to unmute you right now. Okay, Julia, you should be unmuted.
We've hosted 2 pumpkin smash events where we're a community organization, but we teamed with our local town environmental management committee, and we actually hosted the event at our transfer station. So we provided a lot of information on what our transfer station provides in terms of recycling, as well as other recycling types, especially like paint waste is a big thing that a lot of people were interested in. And we do have a catapult. So it was fun. Thank you.
What community are you with?
Town of Shongum down in Ulster County.
Okay. Great.
If you could send me your email address, I'd love to talk catapults and see pictures of your catapult or something.
Okay.
I'll put mine in the chat here.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Kay McKean and Emily King, I'm about to unmute you. Unmute. Oh,
we are the folks that start.
Yep, you should be unmuted now, Kay and Emily.
Hi, everybody. This is Kay and Emily. We are with Scarce. We are the organization that started the Pumpkin Smashes. And yes, don't trash it. Smash it came from us. And we're delighted with today's information and all the detail you guys are going into. Congratulations. We started with 3 towns. And last year we had 95 towns that registered. And it's really cool to get registration. So we know they're all over the country now. A lot of colleges, they're just all over the country. But what's really cool is when we can get your weights, pumpkins are 90% water. So then we can figure how much water is rescued. It doesn't go to a landfill. We can figure out how much methane is not made. We can figure out a lot of things if we know. And then together, 95 groups, right? That was 1,200 tons, I think, last year, something like that. So we are really anxious to hear any of your results. Whether your hauler gives you a weight, we have had people who weigh every pumpkin that comes in. They have kid volunteers. It's kind of a STEM extension, science, technology, engineering, and math. The kids are weighing the pumpkins, recording it, and telling you, and then they figure out how much water is rescued and those kinds of things. So first of all, congratulations to everybody who has done this, and thank you for all the details. But we are really interested in like the combined efforts, finding out how many pumpkins are rescued, how many pounds, those kinds of things. It's really important to us. And on our website, you can register. There's information in English, there's information in Spanish. Many towns are doing it November 2nd, and many towns are doing it November 9th, feeling that the 2nd is so close to the 31st that people are going to want to keep their pumpkins a little bit longer. So the people who are registering so far are telling us the 2nd or the 9th. And then we have a part of our website that when you put in your zip code, it will tell you the closest place to bring your pumpkins. So it'd be cool to have you guys register on our website and just kind of spread it around the country. Last year, we did a TV show with Channel 9 out here, which is WGN. I don't know what stations you all have. It's kind of our big local television. And that got so many more people interested. And then the Weather Channel. The Weather Channel has done 4 programs, live interviews, and that really has been great because the Weather Channel is very interested in reducing the methane gas. So different avenues, whatever you guys have locally, you never know what that's going to lead to in a bigger step. And then we also were really thrilled that there's a nationwide organization for park districts, and they did a 6-page spread on this event, which really helped spread it around the country. So there's lots of great ways to spread the fabulous work you guys are doing and the important work. I know that it's fun to smash pumpkins, but we work really hard on the importance of rescuing that water so it doesn't come contaminated in a landfill, as well as reducing the methane gas. So Illinois grows about 650 million pounds of pumpkins a year. We're the largest producer of pumpkins. I think Indiana is second with 180 million pounds. But together, you guys, pumpkin pies and all that kind of stuff, it's really important in America if we can rescue the water and let people know that they're part of a really, really big event. So when people register, we can say, look across the country, look what's been done with this little fun project. I mean, it started out little, guys, 3 towns, 95 registered last year. And I have no idea really how many towns do this, but you're welcome to use anything on our website. And we have a few things that we're going to tweak to update it for a little more information. And Emily and I hope to get that done really quickly. And then we love your videos and pictures, and you can send them to us because your ideas then can be spread to other people around the country. We had a call from the United Kingdom a few years ago, so who knows where this is going. But thank you all for your work.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Kay.
Yeah.
It sounds really wonderful.
Yeah, and I know that Kay and Emily had dropped the link to their organization in the chat, so definitely check it out. They have a lot of really nice resources. Okay, next I'm going to unmute Nancy Tudor. Nancy, you should be unmuted.
You hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So we did our first one. I'm in Clifton Park, New York, and we did advertise through Scarce and also through DEC, as well as on the town Facebook page. But what we did was I reached out to farmers and apple orchards, thinking they had parking. Well, so I should say farmers were not interested in the pumpkins for whatever reason, but the apple orchards were. They have the parking. They had the equipment. They took the kids out in little carts they had a small little mound that the kids climbed up the mound and just smashed the pumpkins over the side. So there are very simple ways to start is really where I was coming from. This year, I think we're going to try the transfer station, but that's my input.
Great. Thanks for sharing, Nancy. And we had a couple other just comments in the chat too. Lauren Click had mentioned the most successful events they've had. They've paired with local waste providers and NGOs, nonprofits, and Circularity College/Greek life clubs, sustainability clubs to leverage each of their own social networks. And there was a question about, what about taking the pumpkins that haven't been carved and making food, soups, muffins, etc., and handing out recipes? Have you, Dan or Tom, have you ever considered that?
I haven't, just because people are bringing us their pumpkins already, so they're getting rid of them. But I suppose we could have pumpkins and I don't know. I may if in a large event, how much you might want to make the distinction between a pumpkin and a cooking pumpkin, because there is a difference with the sweetness and the texture. But
So, it'd be something to think about. I'm seeing the pumpkin smash word searches and other resources on the Scarce website. We might want to start handing that out, and maybe some tips for cooking or donating pumpkins to farms or for the food pumpkins, donating to hungry people, for folks that come to the event but still have pumpkins laying around for Thanksgiving and beyond.
Mm-hmm. And we had another person who raised their hand, Melissa Miller. I'm going to request to unmute you, and you should be unmuted.
Oh, hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
So I guess, well, you just touched on my one point. I love the idea of encouraging people to use the pumpkins for cooking. And also, so I guess my point is, at these events, have you ever done like public education as well as allowing people to, come and smash pumpkins? I think like if we can encourage, I know locally, I live in an area where like we have a lot of, woods and agricultural property, and it just seems like it'd be great to encourage people to break open the pumpkins at home and maybe leave it in like woods behind their home for deer and other wildlife, um, or using them to, cook. Also, I volunteer at a farm animal sanctuary, and we're always desperately looking for people to like donate their gourds and their pumpkins because our pigs enjoy eating them. Some of the other animals will kind of like pick, but especially the pigs love them. Um, and then how do you, if you donate the smashed pieces to farms that may be willing to take them, um, it's not good for any farm animal to eat rotting, moldy pumpkins. So how do you separate, like if people are bringing really gross, moldy pumpkins, obviously you don't want them smashing them in areas where we're smashing good pumpkins that are still good for farm animals to eat.
Well, I'll answer the last part first. Is the farmer comes and they bring their own trailer, and they only take whole pumpkins, and so they're never commingled with the smashed ones. And then it took us a while to find a farm that still had pigs to feed because the pigs are going to market and they usually go to market that time of year. But we did find a farmer that wanted to feed pigs, and they also feed their cows. But it took a while for us to find a farmer.
Okay, and do you ever pick up the pieces and like dispose of them in like wooded lots for wildlife, or are you just kind of bringing them mostly to composting areas?
Well, as I mentioned, we started spreading the pile of pumpkins on a lot, and it grows another pumpkin patch, and we don't fence it off or anything. And we're trying to build organic matter up for future open space development. So it's a win-win for us. And when we do compost outreach, I talk to a lot of people that say, "Oh yeah, I have my food scraps and I just put them in the woods behind my house." And they're like, "Great, that's the best thing you can do is to keep it on your property." But so the pumpkin smash is really reaching all the people who don't have the ability to do that, or not doing that. And our organization tent is our full tent that we would have if we were tabling someplace. So we have informational displays about the problems of organics, pollution, and landfill, and interactive things to do with people. So it is a full educational event in that way.
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Melissa. Lisa Marie, I'm going to request to unmute you. You're now unmuted.
They bring their own. We would do it right after Halloween.
All right. I think Lisa might have been chatting with someone else. Any other questions Dan and Tom, that you wanted to ask the group?
If there aren't any other questions for us, then I'd like to ask people if they have other ways they've smashed pumpkins or other ideas for smashing pumpkins. I don't think a catapult would work where we are with our small footprint, but I'd love to like implode a pumpkin or, and I know some places they drop like a big heavy thing on a large pumpkin or something. So I've seen people where they try to like drop it off a ladder, and that didn't seem like it really worked to me. But love to hear other ideas for smashing pumpkins.
One idea that's been mentioned at our event is a pumpkin guillotine, but I'm not sure that's exactly safe.
Just bring out all the old medieval tools to smash a pumpkin. Someone in the chat said maybe get a fire truck and drop them.
I mean, I did like the idea of a bat, because if you swing a bat down and over your head like a club, it really does a good job. But people see a baseball bat and they just want to swing it, and maybe their hands are getting wet or something, and there's people around. You can't do it safely that way. So I don't know if we go back to like make a caveman type of club that's like, oh, you know, but
Doesn't look like anyone else has any other ideas. Everyone's still brainstorming that themselves.
sure.
Any other questions before we wrap up today?
No, I think we covered it pretty much, and some people were writing in the chat about different social media platforms and ways they communicate the message. So
Maybe I'll just end with one last question, which I think you both really spoke to the importance of having good relations with your public officials. Dan, you know, you work for the town of Bethlehem, so I would hope that that relationship is already kind of there. And Tom, I think you have really built yours up from, you know, the ground. So maybe you both could just kind of speak on how you started those relationships and how those relationships have been built over time.
I'll go real quick. Yeah, I've been with the town this is my 14th year, so I like to think I have pretty good relationships with my colleagues at the town board and the town supervisor. As I may have mentioned already, have been very supportive of the town's food scraps composting program and our expansion over the years. We became our own recycling and composting department a couple of years ago, recognizing the importance of composting and recycling as its own separate entity from underneath the highway department, where it had been for the first 30, 40, 30, 35 years or whatever of its existence as an entity. And they were been enthusiastically supportive of the pumpkin smash and the catapult, and our town supervisor was the first one there, and helped get media there and everything for the first year for the first launch of the catapult. So couldn't really ask for a better relationship with the town.
yeah, and unlike Bethlehem, we don't have an organics facility to draw from as a resource, and it's one of the things we're advocating for and building towards with Grow Amsterdam. And our current mayor, is very supportive of our programming and everything, and some of the common council members are as well. So that's a positive. I'm not afraid of having things look like they're linked to the current mayor, if like a new administration came in and they would oppose it. But we're working on, the city budgets are tight, and so they don't have a lot of funding, but we've developed a good relationship with the Parks Department, and they provide us with some tables and chairs and sawhorses and the dump truck that we use, and they're pretty low key about everything. That the biggest wicket we have to pass through is to actually do a permit application and show the city that we have the insurance. But otherwise, the city's very supportive of what we do and really appreciative.
Great. Well, I really want to thank both of you today for just talking through your experiences with hosting Pumpkin Smash events. As mentioned in the beginning, we have recorded today's webinar, so we'll send that out along with a PDF of today's presentation. and the checklist that we made just to help you walk through planning an event. We hope to be in touch with you all as we move closer to the time of Pumpkin Smash events. We keep a list of all the events on the DEC website, so if you have an event that you're planning, you can email us, and I'll put all of the information in our follow-up email to all of the attendees today. But yeah, if you have any questions about hosting an event, please feel free to reach out to Dan and Tom directly. And if you have any questions about kind of the regulatory side of potentially hosting this type of event, feel free to reach out to DEC, but we'll put all of the contact information in the follow-up email. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining, and have a great day.
Thank
See ya.
you, Christine, Jesse, Tom, Miranda, everybody who helped.
Be well.
Take care, everybody. Happy smashing.
Absolutely.